Hi, hang on. Hi, my name is Kris Hare, and I'm an MA candidate in history at the University of Wyoming. And I'm here to talk about my research, which deals with the formation of British nationalism during the era of Napoleon. So, unlike the rest of the panelists and speakers here today, all of the people I will be talking about have been long, long dead. So my research deals with the 25 years from roughly 1790 to 1815. And I don't know how much time sort of non-historians spend thinking about this time, so I'm going to give you a brief primer of what's going on. Oh dear. Okay. Um, so British and French people have had long antagonisms with each other, as anyone who's studied history should know. But I'm going to briefly go over this. So Britain is largely Protestant and specifically Anglican at this time, and France is still largely Catholic, 95% Catholic. But it's often perceived as atheist after the French Revolution, which has just happened. And I'm not going to go too much into this, but here it is. I'm going to take you, so I work specifically with the print materials that proliferated in the early 19th century and the print materials that industrialization made available for the first time to the vast majority of the populace. These included caricatures like this one. So you have Nelson sitting on the left and Napoleon on the right. And these were produced for an elite audience by members of the elite. So James Gilray, who produced this print, lived on St. James, which is the street the prince now lives on. And you can find an apartment there for a couple £1 million. But these within them both push the idea of British nationalism that comes about during this time and also have subtle critiques of that. So you'll notice that Napoleon is sort of carving off Europe and Nelson is carving off the American chunk of the world, which is a subtle jab after the recent loss of the American colonies. Here we go. The other print materials that were available to the lower classes were broadsides like this one. And these were much less subtle in their messaging. So this one was produced by a Baptist minister, Louis Mayer, and it literally conflated Napoleon with the beast from Revelations. And you'll see that he invented a very sophisticated math system to sort of make Napoleon's name add up to 666 here. So the research questions I went to Britain with were, how were these people motivated to participate in war after they had so recently just gotten out of the colonial wars? And these were very expensive conflicts with Napoleon. How do you motivate a populace that's already weary to sort of participate in war again? And what is the role of print images and class within these messages? This is the British Library where I went. The British Library does have a relationship with the British Museum and contains most of the manuscripts from Britain's history. I literally held in my hand documents from 1795, and I still can't believe they let me do that. So I'm going to take you through 4 of these images and sort of just explain to you what's going on in them, and hopefully that will be interesting to you. So this is a print by Rowlandson, The Contrast, and it's contrasting British ideas of liberty with the perceived French ideas of liberty. And so you'll notice, for Britain, it's all the class is inherently coded into this because they sort of talk about inheritance and property. And Britannia is here, the Navy, always a point of pride for the British. And the French, there's a person hanging here, and this is Lady Liberty, by the way, and she's literally treading on a corpse. You'll see that proposed French values are here: treachery, famine, and ultimately misery, right? This is Gilray's interpretation of basically the same argument, but this is French liberty versus British slavery. So you'll remember at this time, George III is still in charge. The Hanovers were notoriously unpopular kings, even in Britain. The colonists here, of course, always talked about taxation without representation. The average British citizen also did not have representation in Parliament and paid those same taxes. And it was often very unpopular. So French liberty entails starving, right? And British slavery, you'll notice this man is very well fed, right? And the message is clear here to the lower class. You may feel as if you are taken advantage of, but being in Britain, it is inherently better. You are at least fed. I will point out that during industrialization, poverty was very widespread in Britain, and there were people that did sort of live with starvation daily. And so this argument would have had a profound effect on them, because it was a genuine fear. If you trust the elite government, you won't starve. There were a couple of, this is by Gilray as well, there were a couple of years when the invasion panic was particularly high, and 20/20 vision is, of course, always perfect, hindsight. But for them, an invasion from Napoleon seemed imminent, and this articulates the fear that they had. There's literally blood running in the streets, the free green cap is here, and there was a genuine worry that London would be ransacked. Some of the broadsides that were circulated detailed the cruelties of French soldiers in places like Italy and Germany, and British citizens were very concerned. However, British people did respond to the call, and many of them volunteered for the Volunteer Corps, even though they had to pay for their uniforms out of their pocket, even if they were very poor. So their ambitions and hopes and confidence, I suppose, is articulated by this next print by Gilray as well. The title of this print is Bonaparte 48 Hours After Landing, okay? And this figure here is John Bull, and he's seen as the British everyman. The argument is literally that 48 hours after landing, our good old boys would take care of him, right? And you'll also notice that there is a subtle message about class here as well. John Bull is a very fat man here, right? Very well fed. Okay. So I just want to talk about the reason that this research might be relevant now is that the proliferation of printed materials did create nationalism in Britain in a way that it had not been before. We tend to think about Britain as a united country of English-speaking white people, and now that is true, but you have to remember that the Act of Union in 1707 combined a group of people that were largely not religious congruent and spoke many languages, and this period of time did manage for them to form a British identity in reaction that sort of valued stability and elite culture over the sort of populist revolution. And I think it might be interesting for us to sort of think about the way, what is our American identity constructed on, and what is it constructed in opposition to? And how does the information that we consume sort of influence the way that we perceive ourselves and others, right? So I would like to thank the Senator Malcolm Wallop Fund, as well as my other sources of funding, for sending me to the British Library, and thank you very much. Bye.